I'm sure plenty of you have heard about AI assistants and AI agents, but how many of you actually know how to implement it into your day-to-day work life? And I'm not talking about just interacting with ChatGPT as a chatbot. I'm talking about it actually doing work for you in the background without you having to input any information at all. In this case, I wanted to build a assistant that goes through all of my Slack messages, summarizes what was talked about during the day, and then create a list of tasks for me based on those conversations. The reason for this is there was so much communication going on through Slack that my issue was that I would just forget what was talked about or to-dos would slip through the cracks. So I needed an assistant to remember what was talked about and then keep me on top of what needs to be accomplished. And you can build this too, and I'm going to show you how just using make.com, which is a no-code automation tool. And then we're going to use ChatGPT's OpenAI or ChatGPT's API feature. And then we'll also use Airtable to store the tasks and summaries. So what I'm talking about is here, if you come in and you look at my screen, up here we have a description, a summary of what was discussed during the day with, in this instance, Martel, and then a list of tasks to follow up on and make sure to get done based on those discussions. And then this is just a dashboard of all the different discussions that you can populate right here. And then we also have a list of tasks too. So to-dos, in progress, and then done. So I can keep track of what needs to still be followed up on and finished. Okay, so this is Airtable, and this is an interface inside Airtable. I'm going to show you how we can build this together, and then also how we can connect Make and OpenAI to be able to create these summaries and tasks for us. So I'm going to exit out of the preview, and first things first, if we go to data, we click up here, we're going to need to create two different tables in this instance. Okay, we have the summary table and we have the tasks table. Inside the summary, it's an overview of what was discussed throughout the day, and then tasks table is each individual task that we need to complete. If you're not new to Airtable, then it's really easy to use. You just need to create different fields and where you want to place the data for those fields. So I have a date conversation field, so that's the name field. And then I have a description field, and this description field is a long text field. So in Airtable, when you create a field, you need to choose what type of field it's going to be. In this case, it's long text, so we can put large blocks of text into it. You can also choose whatever you want. You have numbers, URLs, emails, phone numbers. That just tells you what data you can put in those fields. And then I also included a little reviewed checkbox field. And the reason for this is so I can see what summaries I've already reviewed and what I have not. And then we have a tasks field. So the tasks field is actually linked to all the tasks in here. And so how you create that is you add a new field, and I'll just create a new one for you, show you what that looks like. And we choose link to another record. And so in this case, I would link the summaries to the tasks, and I'd click tasks, and you can choose between linking to multiple fields and a few other options, create the field. And then you can add lookup fields if you want. I'm going to skip that. But then what happens is when you choose that, inside the tasks field, you'll notice you get another field too, another one's created. And so what that allows us to do is link that particular task to that summary. So if I click in the dropdown, I have one summary in the summary field, in the summary table, and so I can link that task to it. And you'll notice that these tasks are already linked to that summary right there. So we'll just delete that field. We'll delete that field. Okay, so this is the layout for basically the database. So Airtable is going to just store all of that information for us. And then Airtable also has the interface feature, which allows us to make it look pretty so that we can see exactly where we stand as far as the new summaries and the different tasks. And so, like I said, this runs in the background. Every day, I'm going to have this run at 11:59 p.m. It's going to take all the messages that happen inside Slack, create a summary of what was talked about, and create a list of to-dos from that conversation. Now, you can take this scenario, and you can pretty much do this for anything other than just Slack. Wherever you can pull data from, you can do this. But for now, we're going to use Slack because I want to. Okay. So, and a lot of you use Slack. Okay, so this is the automation built out already. And what you can see is there's these different little bubbles, and what those are called are modules, and they're different softwares communicating with each other. The first one is Slack. So this pulls the messages from our Slack account. And then we have this tool right here, which is going to take all those messages, aggregate it into one big conversation. And then that is going to be passed along to ChatGPT module. And this module is going to summarize what was discussed about. So that'll give us our summary. And then it's going to add that summary to Airtable. And then it's going to, ChatGPT again is going to create a list of tasks from that summary that was created by the initial GPT module. And then this tool right here is going to parse all those tasks, those individual tasks, and then it'll add them into Airtable and create a record. So if you're new to Make, it's really quite simple. All you need to do is link your accounts that you currently have inside the modules and then start to feed it data. So for Slack, for example, you'll go into Slack, you'll click Add, and then it'll ask you to approve a connection between Make and Slack. And so you'll need to be logged into Slack on the same browser that you are going to connect Make to. So then once we do that, you're also going to need an API key from OpenAI, or just you're going to need an OpenAI API account. And you can do that by searching OpenAI API and create yourself an account. And then you'll link it here. You'll just click add, same way. And then you'll get an API key from OpenAI. You'll add that in there. And then you'll click save, and that'll allow you to interact with OpenAI ChatGPT outside of the actual chatbot itself. Okay, and then Airtable, same thing. You're going to need an Airtable account. You're going to click add. You're going to need to be logged into Airtable. Airtable is free. They have a free tier, which you can use. Same with all of them, actually. Slack, everything except OpenAI. Make, they have a free tier as well. So all this can be done for free. Okay, so let's get into the actual build of it. What do we have? So we have this first module, which is to watch direct messages. So when you add a new module, you can right click and then click add a new module, or you can choose the plus button at the end of your scenario. So at the beginning, if we click add a module and we were to move this timer to over here, and we chose Slack, we could choose whatever we want to pull those channel messages. In this example, I'm going to watch direct messages, but you could also watch public channel messages. You could watch private channel messages, wherever you want to pull messages from that you want to review. So in this instance, I'm pulling from a private direct message. So, and as you can see, after you choose that, which I'll just show you what that looks like. Watch, I'm going to use watch direct messages. You choose who the message is coming from. A lot of them are some of them are their names, others are actually just their ID themselves, but you're going to have to find their name or their ID, and then that will allow to pull that data from that conversation. So I'll just delete that. Okay, and then once you have that, you can choose where to start. So from now on, or you can choose from a specific date. For example, if I choose from 2:51 a.m. from 8:29, I click OK, and then I right click and say run this module only, it's going to give me all the messages that were discussed that day. Okay, the next one is the text aggregator. So we're going to once again, if you're not familiar just yet with adding a new module, you click add a new module, and then you can search for the module you want to add. So this is a tool. This is in the tools belt, and this is the text aggregator right there. And delete that, and then we connect it to Slack. So what we'll do is the source module will be Slack watch direct messages, and then the text that I want to put in there is message from this data variable colon text. So that's going to aggregate all that data into one big conversation. And the reason for that is because if you look here, there's different bundles that Slack gives you as an output. And so we need to take all these bundles and aggregate it so we can feed ChatGPT just one conversation instead of individual messages. So how do you get these variables? You click in the box, and then it shows you the data that you have access to, which this from Slack is we have user, and then we have the text from the user. Next one is OpenAI. So we'll connect our account like we did, and then these are the prompts that you use. So I chose for the model GPT-4o Mini, their system model. And then we're going to do, the first message is going to be for their system role. So choose system and then fill it in with this prompt. This is between John and Martel, and John's the main user, so his ID, and I have this ID because if you look at you also want to feed ChatGPT the IDs of each user, and the reason for that is because Slack doesn't give you the names of the user, just their IDs. So if you want GPT to know who's talking, you can tell it what each user's ID is. So like I said, if you look at Slack, it gives you the users up here, the user ID. So this is the first prompt, and then the second prompt we do under user, and we do here are the Slack messages, which is this text, this text aggregator data block right there. And then we'll use max tokens, just do whatever. I did 5,000, which is a pretty high number. And then the next thing to do is to create that summary inside Airtable. So we pull up our Airtable account, we choose the base. For this instance, the base is Slack to-do list, and then the table is the summary. So the name, the date conversation, I formatted the date to be month, day, year, and then dash Martel, so I knew who the conversation was with. And then the description is, if we click in the box, you'll see OpenAI and the result. And where is the result stored? If you click choices, and then you go to message, and you click the drop down, content, that is the reply that you'll get from ChatGPT. And we'll put that there. That'll be the summary, the output that GPT gives us. And then for the format date option, so now this is how do you do this? Well, if you go to the date section here, you can choose now. I'll just show you real quick what that looks like. Format date is a function that we'll just format it how we want it, and then we'll choose now as the variable, and then we have options for how we want the date to be formatted. So in this instance, I'm using this, but you could also use this or this. I'm gonna click OK, and then, all right, and then so Airtable's finished, and then the next thing is to create a GPT module that's going to create our tasks for us. So if we go to GPT, once again, I'm using the 4.0 mini as opposed to 4 itself or GPT-4 or GPT-4o. The reason is it's way cheaper, and I find it's just as effective for this particular task. So this is the prompt for the next GPT module. Your role is to take a summary of a discussion and create tasks for the main user, respond to the tasks in a JSON object array. If there are no tasks or objectives discussed, respond then with no. And the object should look like this. So what the point of this is, because we need to break up each of those individual tasks that it creates into their own little blocks of data. So then we can add it into Airtable one at a time. And so all you need to know is just make sure that GPT responds with the information like this: task title, task description. And then the bottom will be respond with just the JSON, nothing else. Do not include apostrophe JSON in your response. And then the next message is from the user. And it should be the summary, and it should be the summary from this GPT module right here. Max tokens, once again, 5,000. Then we have parse JSON. So we're going to put the information, the output that we get from GPT inside the parse JSON module. And the reason for this is, like I said, we're going to want to break up that JSON array so we can then put those individual tasks inside of Airtable. And then the next step is we're going to take the data from the JSON, parse JSON, and we're going to add it into a new Airtable, into the Slack or into the tasks field of Airtable in that Slack to-do list table that we created. And the name, like we have, is task title, task description. Now, how do we get this information here? What we're going to want to do is if we just create a JSON, parse JSON module, and we just put in GPT's response. And so right now I have JSON, this module 7, and then this one 12. If I go into Airtable and I click, you'll notice that I only have 7, not 12. And the reason for that is because I ran that module earlier. How did I do that? Well, I copied this format right here. I copied this JSON array format, and I went into parse JSON and I clicked run this module only. And then I added in that data. So once again, you're going to have to click drop down, add item, go to message, content, and then paste that information in there, run it. And then you'll notice that you get the output. Now it's parsed into different, and the a collection. So we have the task title and then we have the task description, which that allows us to get that data to pass it in through Airtable. One other thing to remember is we're going to want to go to summary, and we're going to want to connect that summary record to the task so that we know what tasks are connected to what summary. And so how we do that is we go into the input box and we choose ID from the original Airtable. This is the summary Airtable. And so let me just name these real quick so you know what we're talking about. This is create summary, add summary to Airtable, create tasks, add tasks to Airtable. All right, so this is how the flow works. And then what we can do to test it is we can choose where to start. What I want to have this do is I'm going to have this run at 11:59. I'm going to have it run every day at 11:59 p.m. So it aggregates all that data once a day. And then normally if I turn that on, it'll just run at 11:59 every day. It'll pull all the messages from Slack and it'll create the summary and the tasks. But because we want to test it for testing purposes, if we choose where to start, we choose from a specific date and just do from yesterday, and I'll do it in the AM. And then we choose run once. Now it's creating the summary, it's passed the data in the Airtable, it's creating the tasks, now it's added all those tasks into Airtable. So if we now go back to Airtable, we can see the data that was added in. So here we are back in Slack, and we have that new summary that was created and the additional tasks that were created as well. And so if we go into the interface, which I'll show you how to create an interface now. So what we can do is we'll click interface. It'll prompt you to create a new interface. And then you can click a plus button. And for this particular layout that I did record review. I chose next, and I did summary, and then I chose next again, and then I chose next again, and then summary 2. I'll just use that as the example and finish. So in summary 2, we have that summary, we have the tasks associated with it. So if we want to make this editable, so we click editable, click preview, then you can actually come in here and edit everything. And you can choose the checkbox, which I added for reviewed. And you can mess around with this. There's a lot of different custom options you can do for Airtable. Feel free to play around with it. This isn't exactly what the tutorial was about. And you don't necessarily need to just use Airtable. You could use Monday.com or any other task to do software. And then here I created another field, a Kanban field, and it has all the to-do lists or all the to-do tasks in there. All right, so that's how you quickly build an AI assistant who works in the background for you, as opposed to just using ChatGPT's chatbot function. Now you can build a real admin assistant. So if there's anything else you want to see built, just drop it in the comments below. And until next time, goodbye.